I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves the balance of time. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Hill.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congresswoman Love stands with Main Street, and Main Street-based community banks is why we're on the floor today, because they're at the heart of helping our families start new restaurants, get consumer financed, finance our farmers. I come from a very rural state, Arkansas, and 70% of the agricultural production loans of this country are made by our locally owned community banks. And making it easier for them to raise capital makes it easier for our consumers and businesses to get the credit they need. For every dollar raised in capital at our banks, $10 can be put into lending into our communities. And small bank holding companies have less access to equity financing than their larger counterparts. It's always been that way. And so this effort makes complete common sense to allow small bank and thrift holding companies to expand their capital base in a more easier and directed manner. Dodd-Frank made it harder to raise capital because of the changes in the law about trust-preferred securities and other ways that many small banks raised capital. So this policy statement change that Mrs. Love proposes is well-timed. There's bipartisan support for raising this threshold to $5 billion, notwithstanding the comments heard in today's floor conversation. Senator Brown, Democrat in the Senate, with Mr. Vitter in the Senate last Congress, proposed $5 billion as the appropriate level for this effort. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, concerning the ranking member's comments about raising the threshold on carte blanche relief under the policy statement that might lead to unsafe conditions, that's, in my view, not correct, Mr. Speaker, as there are numerous other restrictions and criteria that continue to apply, and the Federal Reserve retains the right to impose capital standards if it determines it necessary to protect the safety and soundness of the institutions.
I yield the gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
For additional 30 seconds.
This bill is about Main Street and economic growth, and it surprises me, as just a member of Congress, that our President Obama, would issue a veto message on this bill. This bill is about economic growth, and I applaud my good friend from Utah's efforts at championing this bill, and I urge my colleagues to support its common sense design and measure, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back.